I recently complained about a very pro-AI bro, and he will sometimes bring up the fact that he's pro-AI to his audience, where his viewers then calls him a loser and then they move on to something else. But despite everyone telling him that they won't support him if he starts using AI, he's still very adamant about creating everything he wants, like movies, graphic novels, cartoons, kids books, and even more YouTube channels, all using 100% AI. He brought up Ray William Johnson a lot, specifically when everyone was disagreeing on his desire to use AI to create art. So I went to go look for other people's opinions on Ray's type of content, but I was honestly shocked to see the amount of people defending his usage of AI, even despite saying that they're anti-AI themselves. Ray has been a long-time popular creator on YouTube and TikTok. He was famous for a lot of his sketches on YouTube a couple years ago, but ventured over to TikTok to do short-form content in 2020, like reactions, doing sketches, and just telling jokes. But recently has been posting basically true crime stories, showing his face at the top of the screen and using the bottom of the screen to show AI visuals of the stories he's talking about. Some people were saying that it doesn't really matter since he still writes the scripts, at least probably. He still uses his real human voice to read out the stories, shows his human face, and uses human editors, so the AI images are actually just a small part of the creation process, that it barely weighs down the scale of him being a good creator or not. But then I'd like to argue, why even add the AI images at all? A lot of his older storytime videos on TikTok, where he just tells stories using stock images and doodles, get around the same likes as his relatively more recent videos where he uses AI. Even when the AI one has millions of more views, they still get similar likes, since the only real difference between the storytelling videos is that one uses AI. His most liked video on TikTok isn't even a storytime video at all. And if you look on YouTube, his storytime videos where he uses AI doesn't even come close to his top performing content, including on his shorts tab. So if the point of using AI images is just because it looks better, I fear that that reason is nullified too. Visuals are the most blaring part of videos that are incredibly hard to ignore, so as someone that does enjoy true crime content that uses stock images and videos to get visuals to what they're saying, replacing that one component really taints the entire video for me. When someone uses stock footage, sketches, or even just their face talking, those components have creative purpose that brings the content together. Even picking stock images out of a catalog still has purposeful photography and filmography behind the catalog, but AI images have a very specific aesthetic to them that some people could describe as very uncanny. Like, yes, this is cool for the first second that I look at it, but then I feel like I'm having a bad trip on an edible. If the visuals aren't important enough to do properly, you'd think that they're not important enough to include at all. The fact that the AI versions don't outperform the older content just proves that they're not really adding value, because as much as some people might appreciate the continuity of the AI characters and the images, it turns away a lot of people because this content now just reads like AI slop. The AI images genuinely don't enhance the work he was already doing, and especially in the context of true crime, using AI to visualize someone's trauma or death because you couldn't be bothered to do it yourself, commission an artist, or find appropriate stock footage just ends up feeling way disrespectful to the subjects of those stories. I know that there are a lot of nuances when it comes to people's general opinion when it comes to AI art, since there's a lot of instances where even if someone says that they don't like AI art, they're fine with it being a tool for creators. Ray is a very influential person that's been a creator for a long time, and he uses the AI generated images to tell a true story. And while I don't think people are bad or even unethical when they still enjoy his content, even when it's gone down a bit hill in my opinion, I still believe that people just tolerate the AI art in his videos. The defense for his AI usage is always negative framing, with people saying things like, it's not that bad, it's only a small part, it doesn't completely ruin it, because I feel like people genuinely see it as a downgrade, but some people see it more of a downgrade than others, that they're willing to stop watching the content altogether. Compare that to how people used to talk about his creative choices, where they use positive, enthusiastic language about elements that actually add something. Whenever I see people defending him and what he uses AI for, they typically always end up saying different versions of worse things exist. But that's not a real defense. We're not comparing his prompting to and murder, we're comparing it to just not using AI generative images. Creative choices tell you something about the creator's intentions, mind, and values. So when they choose to use AI to replace certain aspects despite having the money, audience, and resources to do it authentically, it tells me that they value convenience and cost cutting over craft and integrity. And once the creator reveals those to be their values, I really don't blame people for leaving that creator behind. It reminds me of some recent drama within the art community with an influencer who became popular for dressing like she was in a medieval Renaissance painting, which already gave her a connection to artists, but she gained a stronger connection when someone commented that she looked drawable. After that, thousands of people started giving her free fan art, which helped her grow her platform even more, and in turn also helped some of those artists who were drawing her, since drawing her fan art was trending in the art community. Everyone was happy. But then for some reason she partnered with Meta AI to promote their generative AI tool, something that visual artists are notoriously against, creating a Renaissance style portrait of herself using AI as basically a, wow, look at this thing you can do with AI. Obviously, she immediately got a lot of backlash backlash for it because, as I said, most of her audience are artists, and her platform was quite literally popularized from free labor from human artists. I genuinely cannot believe she thought that promoting a tool that directly threatens artists' livelihoods, something that artists are extremely vocal about, would end as something beneficial or even neutral to her. She had a couple defenses for choosing to do this collab, but I'm not sure if any of them really hold up. One reason was that she felt like she had no choice because she obviously needs money to live and there's no creator fund for TikTok in Australia, and gaining monetization from Instagram can sometimes be a bit complicated, so the only real money she could make from content creation is getting sponsorships. She specifically uses the phrase beggars can't be choosers and that it was her first big collab, but she has over 1 million followers with 53 million likes on TikTok, which is an incredibly privileged position to be in online. I fully understand that a lot of people overestimate with how much creators make, especially when attached to a high number following, but her followers also consistently watched her content, meaning she could have moved on to a different platform if the platform she was working on wasn't compensating her creative efforts. And that's exactly what a lot of other people suggested. YouTube Shorts are monetizable in Australia, and she didn't even have to switch her content style since she could have just reposted her older videos to YouTube. A lot of other artists do that and are still able to regain their success when their content is outright good, and I would say that her videos are good enough to gain popularity on multiple platforms. Her Renaissance fashion was popular for a good reason, which is why everyone was so disappointed when she chose the path nobody wanted her to take. Even if she didn't want to repost content, she could have made a Patreon or a Ko-Fi just for donation support, or even merch since she makes enough aesthetically pleasing videography that she could have sold as posters or as prints on clothing, or she could have collaborated with thousands of the artists that made her free art to sell prints and split the revenues. Or the most obvious one, wait for another brand deal that you would actually support backing. She says that content creation is her job, but part of your job as a content creator is to be aware of what you do as a content creator. If she was a tech bro that talks about new and upcoming technology and got a sponsorship from AI, sure, that'd be more fitting, but as an artist, she should have known that partnering with Meta AI was a poor choice, especially since the only reason she took it was for money. She didn't actually like the product. The whole point of brand deals is to support something so your supporters might be influenced to support it too. But if you don't actually support the thing you're advertising, that also reveals the fact that she doesn't truly respect her supporters if she's trying to sell junk to them that she herself knows is junk. Having an audience is a privilege, not a right, and she took advantage of the fact that her audience trusted her. If she truly saw her content creation as a job, she should have treated it like one, and even if she didn't know what to do, she should have asked for help. I felt uncomfortable blaming her at first, and she obviously didn't know that this would be as big of an issue as it became, but I also feel uncomfortable with the fact that she only didn't know because she didn't care to learn. Her comment section was constantly filled to the brim with artists, online artists who are constantly talking about the looming threat of AI, and was one DM, or more safely, one post away to get a read on what her specific artist-filled audience thought about AI. I do really feel bad for her since she probably did genuinely need that money, and sometimes people don't know the entirety of the AI debate, and because of her ignorance, she's facing so much hate and backlash to the point that her haters began attacking the artist that drew her as well, which... come on, guys. People also dug up a lot of older controversial stuff, like when she painted her entire face black for a crow costume, which I feel like it really depends on how you look at it, because I've only seen non-black people call this look blackface, and then actual black people saying that it's not blackface, so I'm not sure. But she also deleted that post a while ago and already apologized for it before this whole AI controversy even came up, but people also claim that she was a white supremacist or a Zionist. The point is that people hate her so much for the AI controversy that they're bringing up more vague things to be upset about, despite her attempts at clarification and regrets. And even though I don't think that's the best response in the world, it does make sense why they would do that. The art community uplifted her so much to the point where it felt like a complete and utter betrayal when she advocated for their replacement. It honestly shocks me when I see people who very clearly already put in the work to make beautiful art back the use of AI. But at least for this creator, it was just an ad, and she didn't get to trick anybody with her usage of AI. I unfortunately cannot say the same for all artists who use AI. Like, have you seen this piece of artwork before? How about this one? At least this one, maybe. These images circulated online a couple years ago, and they were really popular in the manosphere since it was a template used to show everyone the differences between a beta and an alpha male. I guess the Omega was busy being impregged or something, but even though I thought the meme was super cringy, the art was still really cool. I found the person who drew all of those photos, and I was following them for a couple years until they posted this image. It was gorgeous until I got confused by the hand because... why is the hand getting merged into her leg? Yeah, he's been using AI in his recent art. I didn't know this until I looked it up, but apparently he's been called out by a lot of other creators, and they show a lot more art that's very clearly initially made by generative AI, which is probably why nearly all of these posts are now taken down, but it's still so weird to make the transition from a real, hardworking artist to a AI course, bro, because these pieces of art that went viral aren't made by AI, and these drawings that he made himself were the thing that launched his career as an artist. But I guess using AI to scam and gouge other artists of their money is more sustainable than being an actual artist, which is sad, I guess. He also used to sell art program brushes that he very clearly didn't use on the recent drawings he's been posting, and commissions that were very obviously also generated by AI. But now he's more focused on pushing his online course that's all about how to make money as an artist or showing off his luxury lifestyle. It's so unfortunate too, because he used to be such an amazing artist until he lost his passion for art and decided to invest his time in course selling and using AI to pretend he still draws to make his audience that followed him for art happy. It's really interesting how AI gets marketed to creators as this tool that'll make their work easier, but every time I see it implemented, it just tarnishes the entire piece for me, especially when that automation replaces the parts that people actually care about. Case in point, I saw a bunch of news for a new life simulator game out there that was supposed to be a competitor for The Sims 4, but one of the main reasons that the majority of Sims players were turned off by it was because of its heavy reliance on generative AI. One of the game's biggest selling points was this feature that let players generate custom textures, 3D objects, and animations through text and image prompts, which is cool on paper, and it most likely appeal to people who don't want to spend hours building or designing, except those people wouldn't play a life simulator game where you build and design things. At first I thought it was just one of those cases where companies use the buzzword of AI, but it's not actually AI, since we've had 3D scanners before, especially when it comes to programs that's used to design rooms and buildings, and I honestly would have been fine with that, but learning that it actually does generate images from text prompts did kind of ruin the building aspects for me. A lot of players asked if the AI was ethically sourced, and the company said that they were only using company-owned and copyright issue-free assets and data, but it turned out that they actually got their images from a dataset that has stolen 5 billion images just off the internet without the consent or knowledge of the creators, which is so disappointing because humans put in the work for this game, and so many people were so excited for it because life simulation games are so incredibly profitable given the amount of creative freedom and things to do. And because of how popular this game was when it wasn't even released yet, I'm kind of shocked that they didn't ask any of their players for artwork or designs to put in the game. A lot of the objects in the world that feature any imagery were all generated by AI as well, and I am using no hyperbole when I say that everything they use generative AI for looks downright awful. Even if they couldn't afford to pay an artist, they had millions of people frothing at the mouth for this game. Could you imagine the marketing for this game if they had made some sort of announcement that they needed art for the game? Like just a little post saying, hey, we're crowdsourcing art from our community, submit your whatever they need, and they could have chosen whatever art pieces they want, and the fans get their art featured in a game and it'd be consensual. I already don't like it when individual people use generative AI, but it feels especially salty when I see insanely popular creators and well-known companies use AI instead of utilizing their fan base that would love to be a part of the creation process. Plus, it'd be a lot more realistic in a life simulation game since the texture art is supposed to look like it's done by different people within the game, so why not have the art actually made by different people instead of by one AI program? I know that companies are always trying to look to the future and use advanced technology and to impress their users because the people behind these tech companies are tech bros who like AI and who think that their audiences are also tech bros that like AI. But when you take shortcuts to get things done cheaply and quickly, they don't look good. Not for the company, not for the developers, and not even in general. This game failed because the people who were originally excited for this game realized that this game was incredibly boring and practically unplayable. There's something deeply ironic about people who've never picked up a pencil discovering that people who know what a pencil in their hand can do don't like generative AI. And I'm not just talking about the creators either, since consumers are also tired of seeing AI everywhere because they understand that there's a human connection there due to someone pouring their heart and soul into creating it, even when it's sometimes questionable. But the people who make decisions about generative AI implementation to supposedly improve art just see art at a surface level because not only are they not creators, they also aren't the targeted consumers, since it just seems like they don't understand why real art is so lucrative. My friend's dad actually recently asked me if I'd ever make a webtoon or something along those lines. I said probably not, since even though I've made incomplete strips before, they're incredibly time consuming, and I'd rather focus on YouTube as my creative outlet since it's less demanding. After hearing that my main setback for making comics is time consumption, he immediately snapped his fingers and pointed at me and said, use AI. I obviously turned down that suggestion since the whole point of making a comic is being in charge of every detail. If I wanted to just tell a short story, I've already figured out how Twitter works, but drawing a comic means you're supposed to care about the details and consistency. He kept insisting that everything I wanted to do down to the very last detail could be done with AI, even even though he was fully committed to the AI method, the argument that finally convinced him to accept my rejection of AI was people who read comics typically hate AI and would boycott the comic purely for using generative images. And he said, "Oh yeah, that's fair." When I mentioned the conversation to my friend, he told me that his dad was just simply business-minded and doesn't understand why people do art besides the money aspect. So that pretty much sums up my thoughts on people who defend or use generative AI for creative purposes. People who've never engaged with art as creators or genuine consumers and only see it as something profitable are the only ones who actually like AI art. I know that the art aspect of AI is probably one of the least harmful things that's related to AI compared to the way worst, but I also know that AI replacing art was one of the very first steps they took with the buzzword of AI. Art was already so easy to devalue in the eyes of people who don't understand it, since it's easy to laugh at the terrible AI art that looks like nothing at the least and disturbing at most, and then move on with your day. But now, it's gotten better, and the only people who like it are the ones who abandon their craft to steal mangled versions of other people's work, or those who've never even tried creating in the first place. But still, despite how extremist I sound, I'm actually not completely opposed to AI in creative spaces. I honestly hate people who have no interest in the creative process itself, who rely on generative AI more than the general buzzword of AI itself, since I actually like assistive AI a lot when it comes to tasks you already need to do. Assistive AI is used to help you get menial stuff done a lot more efficiently that doesn't replace creative input. For a creative artistic space, it's also used in digital drawing apps that help you use the bucket tool for lines that aren't completely filled, and used in animation apps to make tedious repetitive tasks get done quicker, and I think that's great. I think it'd be more accepted by creators if the AI was used to amplify the hard work instead of replacing it overall. Like, instead of AI art programs being trained off of stolen art that the artists didn't get consent or aren't even being paid to be trained off of, I wish the AI programs were specifically made for those artists that could maybe generate stencils that are trained off of their art alone, instead of stealing from others that aren't aware they're being stolen from. Similar to how comic artists make their own stencils to make whatever they want in their backgrounds. But no matter how much I wish that people who pushed for AI and created with AI just do it for the love of art and creation overall, I also know that's just not realistic, and I think other artists know that too. Which is why creators who love being creators and people who genuinely love those creators feel like they have to take such an extreme stance against AI, because despite the technology having the potential to help us, it's being used against us. But I don't know, that's just me. Laters.